The people you are going to spend tonight with crossed open oceans in open boats, steering by sunlight, swell and the flight of birds, and settled the very edge of the livable world, treeless coasts, volcanic valleys, islands of black rock and green turf, where winter lasts half the year, and the sun, in the deep of it, barely troubles to rise. History remembers the few weeks a year some of them spent abroad being terrifying. It forgets what they actually were for 11 months out of 12, which is farmers, weavers, poets, and some of the most ingenious cold-weather engineers who ever lived. Tonight there is no voyage. Tonight there is a snowstorm coming down a northern valley, and one long, low, grass-roofed house glowing from within like an ember in a drift. And you are already inside it. So settle into your bed. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands rest wherever they are comfortable. There is nothing to remember tonight, and nothing to solve. If you drift off before the story is done, that is exactly what it is for. You wake up inside a Viking Longhouse, and outside, it is snowing. You know it is snowing before you know anything else, not because you can see it. There is nothing to see. The afternoon is already going dark. This far north, the winter sun gives up in the middle of what your century would call the afternoon. But because you can hear it, or rather, you can hear what it does to everything else. The wind, which has been working the valley all day, has gone soft and muffled at the edges, the way voices go soft in a room hung with cloth. Snow is falling on the roof above you, thickly, steadily, and the roof is made of turf, living grass over deep layers of cut sod, and the snow is settling into the grass like one blanket being laid on another, and the house, which was already quiet, is being tucked in. You are lying on a broad sleeping platform built along the wall, on cushions stuffed with down and hay, under a thick woolen blanket and a sheepskin, and beneath the wool you are warm in the particular, hard-won, glorious way of being warm that only exists within earshot of real cold. The platform is wide enough for a family and runs the length of the wall, as its twin runs the length of the other wall, because in this house, the furniture is the architecture. You sit on the platforms by day. You sleep on them by night. The house is one long room, and the long room is one long hearth, and everything in it faces the fire, and the fire is the first thing you see when you open your eyes. Down the center of the earthen floor, in a shallow stone-lined trench running half the length of the house, burns the long fire. Not one hearth, but a low river of embers and small flames, tended at 3 or 4 glowing stations along its length. And its light is the only light, and its light is enough. It lays a warm copper glow up the timber pillars, across the faces of the people moving quietly at their evening work, along the smoke-darkened underside of the roof, and it fills the whole long room with the soft, breathing orange dusk that human beings have gathered into on winter nights for 10,000 years, and that your body recognized before your eyes were fully open. Someone laughs quietly at the far end of the house. A dog's tail thumps twice against a platform and subsides. The snow goes on, filing the world away outside. You are, by every measure that matters tonight, in the safest place in the north. Let your eyes travel the house while the evening gathers, because this building is one of the great quiet masterpieces of cold weather engineering, and every part of it is a problem the North solved and then stopped thinking about. It is long, 60 feet, 80 in a wealthy house, and low and slightly boat-shaped, wider in the middle than at the ends, built by people who thought in hulls. Its skeleton is timber, driftwood and precious imported beams in the treeless lands, and its flesh is turf, cut sods of living grassland stacked like enormous bricks into walls 6 feet thick, laid in herringbone courses, roofed over with more turf on birch bark, so that from the hillside above, a longhouse in winter is almost nothing at all. a low whaleback of snow-covered grass with a soft feather of smoke rising from its spine and 2 small squares of firelight glowing at the gable. The house does not stand against the land. It wears it. And 6 feet of earth and root is insulation your own century would respect. It holds the fire's warmth the way a thermos holds heat. It swallows the wind whole, and it was cut from the ground the house stands on, at the total cash cost of nothing but labor, which is the oldest bargain in this whole long journey of ours. The smoke from the long fire rises and finds its way out through openings up in the roof, and those openings have a name you have been carrying in your mouth your entire life. The Norse called such an opening a vindauga, from vindur, the wind, and auga, the eye, the wind's eye, the hole where the house looks at the wind, and the wind looks in. English took the word hole, softened it on its tongue for a few centuries, and gave it to you as window. Every window you have ever gazed through, every window seat and windowsill of your life is, hiding inside its name, a smoke hole in a Viking roof. The wind's eye, still watching. Under your feet, packed earth strewn with rushes. Along the walls, the great platforms, and between the platforms and the fire, the low working benches. At the far end, behind a wattle partition, you can hear the other half of the household breathing, large and slow and patient, the cattle, byred under this same roof for the winter, and their warmth drifts up the long room all night. A gift you know well by now. The medieval village kept it, and it was old then, and it was old when this house learned it. At the near end, the entrance passage doglegs, twice before it reaches the room. A little maze built for no reason but this one, that the wind, following a person in through the door, gets lost on the way and gives up. Nothing in this house is decorative that is not also structural. Nothing is structural that has not been thought about for 20 generations. It is a machine for keeping 15 people and 20 animals alive through 6 months of northern winter, using grass, wood, wool, and fire. And tonight, with the snow coming down and the long fire drawn to its evening brightness, the machine is doing the thing it was built for, and doing it so well that the storm outside has been demoted to a sound effect. Now the people, because a longhouse in winter is above all a full house, and everyone in this one has a place in it as fixed as the pillars. At the center, on the raised seat midway down the platform, the place of honor with the fire before it, sits the farmer himself, the master of this household, and the Norse word for what he is tells you exactly how this society ranked things. He is the husbondi, the compound of hus, house, and bondi, a settled farmer, a dweller, literally the house dweller, the fixed man of the farm. And when Norse settlers carried the word into English, it became husband, so that every husband since, whatever else he may be, is in his name's deep memory simply this: the man of the house, the one who stays. His wife holds the keys, actually physically. The keys to the storehouses hang at her belt as the sign and substance of her office, for inside these walls the law and the custom are plain. The wife rules the indoors, the stores, the cloth, the food, the whole economy of survival. And a Norse farm wife is as far from a decorative figure as the loom is from a toy. Around them, the household, grown sons and their wives, a grandmother on the warmest bench who has seen 70 winters and mislaid nothing. Children distributed through the firelight like cats, each in the spot they have argued for and won. A couple of hired hands wintering for their keep. And tending the fire and hauling the water and mucking the byre, the thralls, and you have learned by now how this journey handles such things, plainly. They are slaves. Norse law counts them as property, as it counts cattle, and that sentence has no gentle version, and the sagas never pretended it did, and neither will this story. The North's wealth, like Rome's and like the colonies, has unfree labor laid into its foundations. It is also true that the wall between thrall and free stood lower here than in most slaveholding worlds, that thralls were freed often enough that the law had detailed rules for it, that freedmen and their children folded into the free farming class within a generation or two. But you know the shape of this truth by now. A door in a wall does not justify the wall. Hold both facts side by side without letting either erase the other, and let the house be what every human house in every century has been. A mixture, warm and unjust and alive, all at once. The grandmother says something dry from her bench. The laughter runs down the platforms like a spark down a fuse. The snow leans on the roof. The fire is fed. Listen past the partition for a moment to the byre end, because half of tonight's warmth and all of next year is standing down there in the straw-smelling dark. The cattle are the farm's treasure and its heaviest responsibility. And in the north, winter is the arithmetic that rules them. From the first snow to the late northern spring, perhaps 6 months, perhaps 7 in a hard year, these animals cannot graze at all. Every mouthful they eat between now and then was cut by hand last summer, in the brief, frantic green weeks when the whole household mowed the home meadow and the water meadows with scythes from first light to last, turned the hay, dried it, feared the rain like an enemy, and carried it home to the barns, load upon load, because the hay barn in autumn is nothing less than the herd's future, measured in armfuls. And the husbandi did in October the hardest sums of his year. So much hay in the barn, so many head in the byre, so many months of winter, at so many armfuls a day, and the 2 columns must meet in spring with a margin, because a northern spring is a liar and comes late more often than it comes early. And the animals the sums could not carry did not see the winter. They were slaughtered at the settling of the cold in the great busy bloody fortnight of the autumn butchering, and became the barrels and the smoke-blackened rafters of meat that will feed this house until the grass returns. Your century flinches at that arithmetic. This one cannot afford to. In the north, sentiment is spent where it can be afforded, and survival is counted where it must be. And every farmer in this valley can tell you his hay to the armful, because the man who cannot is the man whose byre goes silent in March. But tonight, the sums were done right, and the proof of it is the deep, contented cud-chewing peace coming through the partition, the occasional shift of a heavy body in straw, a long sigh you can feel through the floor, the small bell on the lead cow noting some private cow decision and settling again. The herd is warm, the hay is holding, the winter is paid for. There is no sound of solvency anywhere on earth quite like a full byre in a snowstorm. At the fire itself, the evening's cooking is underway, and the woman kneeling at the middle hearth station with the long iron fork is the mistress of the house, because in this house the most important firework is not delegated. She has kept this long fire through 30 northern winters, banked it every night under its ash, breathed it awake every black morning, read its moods in every weather, and in all those years, through storms that took roofs off neighboring farms, she has never once come to a cold hearth. She does not think of this as an achievement. It is Thursday. Or rather, it is Thorsdar, Thor's day, for the days of her week are the days of her gods, and when the English learned their week from the North Sea world, they kept the arrangement, Tyr's day, Odin's day, which the English said Woden, Thor's day, Frigg's day, so that your own calendar, hanging in your own kitchen, still quietly names 4 Norse gods a week, and Thursday's child, whoever else she is Thor's. Supper tonight is the North's honest winter food, and it is better than its reputation. A barley porridge enriched with butter has been going all afternoon in the great soapstone pot. Flatbread bakes directly on a hot flat stone at the fire's edge, turned with fingers too practiced to hurry. There is smoked lamb from the rafters, sliced thin, tasting of birch smoke and mountain pasture. There is dried fish, and dried fish deserves a moment of respect, because it is one of the great inventions of the North. Cod, split and hung on open racks in the freezing wind of late winter, dries to something like fragrant wood, loses most of its weight and none of its goodness, and will then keep, without salt, without smoke, without anything but air for years. Stockfish fed the North, provisioned the ships, and became, in time, the North's great export, protein that could cross an ocean in a sack. Tonight it is pounded soft with a stone mallet, a sound like patient applause, and eaten with butter, and it is chewy and mild and deeply satisfying, and it was swimming 2 winters ago. And there is Skyr, the soured milk of summer, thick, white, tart, and cool from the storeroom, the North's way of making June last until February, and to drink, thin winter ale for everyone, and the promise of mead, the honey brew, kept for the feasts. The meal is eaten on the platforms, bowls on knees, firelight on faces, the dog performing his ancient patrols beneath. And notice what you are tasting, because the whole menu is a single idea. Nothing on your spoon is fresh, and everything on your spoon is summer. Smoked, dried, soured, salted, buttered, brewed, every mouthful is a piece of the bright half of the year, caught as it passed and carried over into the dark half. And a Norse winter supper is therefore not a meal so much as a message, sent in June, arriving now, saying, "We thought of you. Hold on." When the bowls are cleared, walk the storeroom end of the house with the mistress and her keys, because you have visited this room in every century of this journey, and the North built the coldest and cleverest one of all. Here are the barrels, and half of them hold the trick the Icelanders will be famous for. Sour whey, the tart liquid left over from the Skyr making, poured over meat and fish in tight-lidded barrels where it turns gently acid and holds decay at the door for months. A whole chemistry of preservation run on nothing but milk and patience. Here are the smoked joints hanging in the peat-scented dark, the butter packed in wooden tubs, salted hard, counted like coin and butter. Here really is nearly coin. Rents and debts are reckoned in it. Here is the grain in its bins, precious in the far north, where barley sulks, the dried fish stacked like shingles, the sacks of Iceland moss and dried herbs, the honey jar, the strings of dark-dried sausage. The mistress moves down the room with a stone lamp in her hand, and the lamp is its own small piece of the system, a shallow bowl of carved soapstone burning fish liver oil with a wick of twisted moss, smoky, golden, faintly marine. The light of the whole winter North lit with the sea itself. And understand what this room is in the deep logic of the house. Outside, for 6 more months, the land will offer almost exactly nothing. No crop, no graze, no green. Every calorie this household will burn between now and the spring thaw is already indoors, already caught, already on these shelves and in these barrels and standing in that byre, and the mistress with her keys can tell you. To the barrel, how the winter balances, so many mouths, so many months, so much butter, and her October reckoning, like her husband's hay sums, came out with a margin. This is what wealth means at this latitude. Not gold, though there is a little of that buried somewhere only 2 people know. Wealth is a full storeroom in November, a stacked hay barn, a sound roof, and a fire that has never gone out. And by every one of those measures, the house you are sleeping in tonight is rich. Now the long evening begins, and the long northern evening is not empty time. It is the workshop of the whole culture, because consider the shape of the year up here. In summer, the light is endless, and every hand is outdoors, haymaking, fishing, building, herding, from a dawn that comes before you wake to a dusk that never quite commits. And in winter, the world contracts to this one firelit room for month after month, and the North long ago decided what those months were for. They are for making. Every craft this civilization owns is practiced on winter evenings, on these platforms, in this light. And the room around you now is quietly full of it. Along the women's side, the wool is moving. A daughter cards fleece between two flat combs, tuft by tuft, into soft rolls. Beside her, her mother spins, and you know this motion by now better than any other in all the centuries. The drop spindle turning, sinking, wound, turning, the thread lengthening between finger and whorl. The exact gesture of the Roman matron and the medieval widow and the colonial goodwife, unchanged, unbroken, older than all of them. And against the gable wall stands the great instrument the thread is destined for. The warp-weighted loom, a tall timber frame leaning into the room, the warp threads hanging in a long pale curtain, each bundle tensioned by a ring of pierced stones swinging gently at the floor. And when the weaving is underway, the weaver stands at it, walking its width, beating the weft upward, and the stones knock and settle, a slow, soft stone music that is the true sound of a northern winter. The house, literally weaving while the snow falls. And here is the astonishing thing about the cloth coming off that loom. It is money. Not like money. Money. In Iceland, homespun woolen cloth of standard width and quality, vadmal, is legal currency. Prices are quoted in it. Debts are settled in it. The law codes define it to the L, and a farm's wealth can be measured in the cloth its women make on winter nights. Think of what that means about this room. The mint of this economy is not a fortress in a capital. It is a loom by a fire, worked through the dark months by the mistress and her daughters, and every winter evening in this house, wealth is not being counted. It is being woven, thread by thread, at the pace of firelight, out of snowbound patience and last summer's sheep. On the men's side, the same season, different materials. The husbandi has a fishing net across his knees, mending mesh by mesh. A son is carving a wooden bowl out of a birch burl, turning it, shaving, turning. Another splices walrus hide rope. An old hand rivets a split axe handle with the small taps of a man in no hurry whatsoever. Down at the byre end, someone is plaiting horsehair into cord. Nobody is idle, and nobody is working hard, and the difference between those two things is the whole art of a northern winter, which is not endured here so much as inhabited, slowly, usefully together, at the pace of thread and shavings, and then, with the work in every lap, and the fire settled to its steady evening glow, comes the hour the whole North waits for, the stories. There is no book in this house. There will be no books in this language for another 200 years and more. Everything this people knows, its history, its laws, its genealogies, its gods, its jokes, lives in living memory and travels by voice, and the winter fireside is where the whole inheritance is kept alive, recited, and handed on. Tonight it is the grandmother who has the floor, because the grandmother is the best in the valley, and what she gives them is a long stretch of the family's own saga, the settlement story, how the great-great-grandfather sailed from the old country with his household and his cattle and his house pillars, and threw the pillars overboard within sight of the new land, and built where the sea chose to carry them, and every person on these platforms has heard it 50 times, and every person on these platforms would riot politely if she skipped a word. Her voice is low and dry and completely unhurried. She speaks the old rolling genealogies, the son of, like a tide going out over stones. The children mouth the famous lines along with her. The spindles keep turning through all of it. The loom weights knock softly, the fire ticks, and the story winds down the generations toward the people actually sitting in the room, which is the whole point of it. Because a saga is not entertainment here, or not only, it is the deed to the farm, the map of who is kin to whom, the family's memory doing what memory must do in a world without ink, walking every winter the whole length of itself. And do not doubt what trained memory can carry in this world. Out in Iceland, the whole law of the land lives in one man's head, the law speaker, elected to know it, who stands at the great summer assembly on the lava plain and recites the law aloud to the gathered country, a third of it each year, the entire legal code of a nation, carried between his ears and spoken like weather. When the English later needed a word for such rules, they did not use their own. They took the Norse one, lag, the thing laid down, and made it law, so that the very word for law in your language is a Viking loan, along with a whole quiet shipload of others the settlers left behind in English: sky, egg, knife, skin, want, take, even they and them. Little everyday words so deeply bedded that you cannot speak an English sentence for long without borrowing, all unknowing, from the people in this room. The saga reaches its evening stopping place, a good one, with the feud settled and the winter coming on. The grandmother folds her hands. Someone puts a riddle into the silence, and the children fall on it like gulls. Earlier in the evening, before the saga, there was one more craft moving in the firelight, and it was the closest thing this room has to writing, and it is worth remembering now in the quiet. The son who carved the bowl also carved on its base, in a dozen quick knife strokes, his mark and a few spiky letters, and the letters are runes, the North's own alphabet, and the alphabet itself is a piece of engineering as fitted to its world as the turf walls are. Every rune is built from straight strokes, uprights, and diagonals, and almost nothing horizontal, and the reason is in your hand the moment you try it. These letters were designed to be cut with a knife point into wood, across the grain, where a horizontal line would sink into the fibers and vanish, and a diagonal stands up clean. It is an alphabet shaped by its own paper. The North did not write with ink on skins, not yet. It wrote with steel on sticks, short messages, names on tools, a trader's tally, an owner's claim, a charm, a joke, memoranda whittled onto whatever was in reach, and archaeologists in the northern towns still pull them out of the wet earth by the 100 little wooden text messages 1,000 years old, saying, in effect, Gyda says come home, and this yarn belongs to Helga, and kiss me. The great memory of this people walks in the sagas by voice, but the small memory, the everyday memory, rode on sticks, in an alphabet built for a knife, and the boy signing his bowl tonight is doing the most ordinary thing in his world, leaving 6 straight cuts that say, quietly, forever, I made this. And between the saga and the sleep, the board came out, because no northern winter evening is complete without it. It is a wooden board of ruled squares, pegged with 2 unequal armies of small carved pieces, dark and light, and the game is hnefatafl, the table game of the whole northern world, found in graves from Ireland to the Volga, and its shape is pure north. One side has a king, who begins at the center of the board with his small band of defenders around him. The other side, twice as many, ring the edges. The king's task is simply to reach the safety of a corner. The attacker's task is to close every road. It is a game about exactly one thing, the thing this whole world is about on a winter night. A small defended center against a surrounding pressure, the hall against the dark, and whether the arrangement holds. Tonight it is the grandmother against her second grandson, and she is, as always, the attackers, and she is, as always, letting the noose look looser than it is. The boy hunches over the board with his chin in both fists. The pieces click down, one considered move at a time. At the pace of firelight, the onlookers offer commentary, which is traditional, and unhelpful, which is also traditional. And when the boy suddenly sees it, the one road she has left open on purpose all evening, and walks his king out through it to the corner with 3 quick clicks and looks up not quite believing, her face does not move except entirely around the eyes, and the household applauds the way you applaud during the great silence of a northern night, with thumps on wool and one soft stamp, and the boy will remember this exact evening, the board, the fire, the wind she gave him without ever admitting it, for about 70 more winters. While the riddles go around, give your ears to the storm, because the storm is worth listening to from in here, the way the sea is worth watching from a harbor. The wind has found its full voice now, and it is working the valley in long passes, and you can follow each one, the far-off rising hum as it gathers on the fell, the deepening rush as it comes down the slope, and then the arrival, which is the marvelous part, because the arrival is almost nothing. The turf takes it. 6 feet of rooted earth do not rattle, do not creak, do not admit drafts to argue with the fire. The gust breaks over the house back, the way a wave breaks over a whale. A deep soft shove you feel in the floor more than here. A brief, fierce fluting across the wind's eye up in the roof. A harder hiss of driven snow along the wall, and then the pass is over, and the long room has not so much as swayed a lamp flame, and the fire burns on straight and unbothered, and everyone keeps carding and carving through the whole performance, because the house has been winning this exact argument for 80 years, and the household stopped attending to it 2 generations ago. There is a word for what you are feeling, listening to weather like that from a bench like this, wrapped in wool with the fire on your face, and no language has it better than the northern ones. The deep, specific comfort of shelter proven, of being emphatically in while the world is emphatically out. Coziness with the pressure of the storm behind it. The way sweetness is better with a little salt. The snow is a siege that feeds the garrison. Every blast that breaks on the turf makes the fire warmer by comparison, the wool softer, the room dearer, and the children, who understand this economy perfectly, burrow deeper into the sheepskins with each gust, and would not trade the storm away for anything. And should the storm carry anyone to the door tonight, the door would open. That is not softness, it is law, and older than law. In this world of distances and weather, the traveler's welcome is close to sacred. The old verses the grandmother knows are full of it. The fire and food and dry clothes, ode to the man who comes in off the fell, because every household in the north knows, in its bones, that next winter the man on the fell may be one of theirs. Hospitality at this latitude is not a virtue. It is mutual insurance, signed in firelight, honored for 1,000 years, and the guest place near the fire stands ready tonight, empty and meaningful, like a lamp left burning. The evening is going down now like the fire, in slow, contented stages. The smallest children have already crossed over, 1 against the grandmother's shoulder, 2 in a puppy pile in the sheepskins, carried 1 by 1 to the sleeping platforms and folded in. The riddles have softened into talk, and the talk into the occasional remark, and the remarks into a long, thick, wool-lined quiet in which the only steady sounds are the spindle, the loom weights, the fire, and the storm doing its distant work. 1 by 1 the crafts are laid down, the net folded, the bowl set on the shelf to wait for tomorrow's shavings, the spindle wound and tucked into the basket. The mistress banks the long fire for the night, working down its length station by station, drawing the embers together, laying the ash over them in that ancient gesture you could perform yourself by now, having watched it in 4 centuries, the burying of the seed of tomorrow. The stone lamps are pinched out 1 by 1, each with its tiny hiss and its last breath of the sea, until only the one night lamp is left burning low on its shelf, and the long room settles into ember glow and shadow, and the household sorts itself into sleep along the platforms, families in their places, the couple in the enclosed bed at the head of the hall, a box bed with sliding panels, a warm wooden room within the room, everyone else in the deep communal warmth of shared benches, shared blankets, shared breath, the oldest heating system there is. The dog turns his circles at the fire trench and drops. Beyond the partition, the byre answers with its own settling straw rustle sigh, the small bell. Silence. Listen to the house go down. The roof timbers ease, one soft wooden syllable at a time, taking the snow's weight the way a shoulder takes a sleeping child. The wind makes another long pass and gets nothing for it. The ember bed in the trench ticks and dims, holding its heat down its whole length like a banked river. 15 people breathe slower and slower in one long room, in one shared warmth, under 6 feet of grass and a rising foot of snow, and the sound of a longhouse asleep in a storm is one of the most defended, provisioned, accounted for, deeply safe sounds in all the human centuries. And it is all around you, and you are inside it, on the warm side of everything. And as the house settles, let the northern year turn past your platform once, slowly, because the north keeps the strangest and most honest calendar in all these centuries of ours. It has only 2 seasons. Not 4, 2. Winter and summer, the dark half and the light half, and the year is simply the pair of them, hinged at the 2 great turnings. The old reckoning does not even count years as years. It counts winters. A child is 8 winters old. A famous horse is 12 winters. A grandmother has seen 70 winters and says so, and the phrase is exact. Because up here the winter is the thing that counts you, the annual examination that every living creature either passes or does not, and to number your winters is to number your victories. You tonight in this house, with the storm spending itself on the turf, are in the process of gaining a winter. It is being added to you while you lie here, hour by defended hour. The light half, when it comes, will come all at once, the sun climbing higher every day until it barely bothers to set, the hay meadows roaring green, the ships going down the rollers, the whole world of work flung open, weeks of daylight so endless that sleep itself has to be argued for. And at the summer's height, the great assembly, the whole country riding to the law plane, tents and trade and lawsuits and marriages arranged, the law speaker reciting his third of the law to the crowd. And the dark half has its own crown, and it is coming soon. Yule, the midwinter feast, 3 days and more of it, in the deepest trench of the dark half, when the storerooms are opened with both hands, the mead finely poured, the best of the autumn's slaughter brought out, the hall packed with neighbors who crossed the snow for it, toasts drunk to the gods, to the dead of the family, to the year ahead, the long fire built higher than any other night, and the whole point of it, the deep engineering of it, is exactly where midwinter feasts have always aimed. You gather the most warmth, the most light, the most people, and the most food, and you spend them together extravagantly at the darkest point of the whole year as a defiance and a promise, and then you go back to the long patience, knowing the sun has turned. Your own December feasts, whatever they are called, still keep the same appointment, at the same turning, for the same old reason. The dark is deepest, so the fire is biggest. It has always been the North's best answer. The old calendar the grandmother keeps in her head has names for these deep winter months, and the names are so honest they are nearly a lullaby by themselves. The month of Yule moon, when the feast comes, and after it, in the coldest trench of the year, a month the Icelanders called Mursugur, the marrow sucker, the month that gnaws the bones of the year. named by people who believed in looking winter straight in the eye and then naming it something you could say with a grim smile while passing the butter. There is a whole philosophy in that name. You do not pretend the marrow-sucker away. You name him, you count him, you lay in hay and butter and sagas against him, and then you sit in your warm hall with your feet toward the fire while he prowls the roof, paid in full and locked out. And that arrangement, tonight, is exactly where you are lying. Sometime before your own sleep takes you, the storm does an unexpected and northern thing. It stops. Not gradually. All at once, between one long pass of wind and the next that never comes, the way northern storms do. The snow hiss fading off the walls, the roof settling into a new, absolute stillness. And the silence after is so sudden and so total that half the sleepers stir without waking, as if a sound had started rather than stopped. And the husbandi, who was not asleep, rises and pulls on his cloak and goes quietly down the long room and through the dog-legged passage and unbars the door for one look at the night, because a northern farmer always takes one look at a cleared sky. It is the weather report, the compass, and the almanac all at once. And because you are awake, you go with him. Outside is another world, and it takes your breath in two different ways at once. The cold is instant and enormous and clean, the kind of cold that feels less like a temperature than like sobriety. And the valley is transformed. The snow has stopped, the sky has torn itself open, and everything, the folded hills, the buried home field walls, the boat shed by the frozen shore. Everything is blue-white and utterly still under more stars than you have ever been shown in your life. The winter sky of the far north, layered and blazing, with the great pale river of them running the length of the valley like a second colder stream. And in the north, low over the fells, the light is moving. Long, slow curtains of pale green, folding and unfolding without sound, brightening, thinning, sliding along the horizon like something breathing. The northern lights, doing what they have done over this valley on clear winter nights since long before anyone was here to stand in a doorway and watch. The farmer looks at them the way he looks at all weather, with attention and without commentary, reads whatever a lifetime has taught him to read there about tomorrow's cold, grunts the small grunt of a man whose byre is full and whose roof held, and goes in. You stay one breath longer. The lights fold. A fox barks once, far up the valley, sharp as a snapped twig, and the silence closes over it. The smoke rises from the roof of the house behind you, dead straight in the still air, a single gray thread from a green ember river, the only warm thing visible in the whole blue world, and it is yours, and the door is open behind you. Go back into the warmth. The bar drops. The passage turns its two corners. The long room receives you like a held breath let out. And from the doorway, before the bar dropped, you saw the other buildings of the farm standing out in the starlight, each one snow-roofed and patient, and each one is a promise the house is keeping through the winter. The hay barn, half spent and on schedule, the herd's future in dry armfuls. The little smithy by the stream, cold tonight, where the farm's iron is mended on milder days, blades set, rivets made. The small self-sufficiency of a world where the nearest anything is a day's ride. The storehouse on its stone legs, lifted knee-high off the ground on mushroom-capped pillars, a design whose whole purpose is that mice, who can do many things, cannot walk upside down under an overhanging cap. The larder defended by geometry. And down by the shore, longest and lowest, the boat shed, the nost, and inside it, up on her rollers, wrapped in the dark, the farm's boat, and in the great houses of this coast, the ship. Tarred, dried, her strakes easing through the winter, her rigging coiled and hung, her oars racked like a promise. Nobody speaks of her much in midwinter, but everybody in this house is aware of her the way you are aware of a door in a room, because she is the other half of this civilization, the summer half. The reason the wide world knows these farmers' name at all, the same hands that carved tonight's bowl and mended tonight's net, laid her clinker planks, each one overlapping the last, riveted tight. A hull built like the roof of this house is layered, flexible, light, and clever, able to breathe with the sea the way the turf breathes with the wind. She has been to markets these children have never seen. She will go again when the light half comes. But that is summer's business. Tonight she sleeps in her shed like everything else on this farm, like the plow, like the bees the southern lands keep, like the fields under their white blanket. And there is a rightness to a whole world agreeing to sleep at once that your century, which keeps everything running all night, has almost entirely forgotten. Winter, here, is not a failure of summer. It is the other season, the resting one, the indoor one, the one that makes the cloth and tells the sagas and raises the children in one warm room, and half of everything the North ever was made in the dark half, by firelight while the ships slept. And the little smithy deserves one more thought before you leave the doorway, because the iron in it came from the strangest harvest in this whole farming world. It came out of the bogs. The North, and Iceland above all, has no iron mines worth the name, and it never needed them, because the land makes iron on its own slowly in the wet places. Groundwater, seeping through the volcanic earth, carries dissolved iron down into the marshes, where it settles out year by patient year into rusty lumps and pans of bog ore, lying under the moss like a crop that plants itself. And the farmers harvest it? Exactly like a crop, probing the bog with iron rods in summer, cutting back the turf, lifting the ore in baskets, and the best bogs renew themselves. A well-worked marsh will grow a new taking of ore in a generation, iron as a slow perennial, farmed by grandfathers for grandsons. Then, the roasting and the charcoal burning. You have sat with a charcoal burner before in an English wood 300 years downstream of tonight, and the craft is already old here. And then the smelting in a small clay shaft furnace behind the smithy, a day and a night of steady bellows work and controlled fire to persuade the marsh's rust into a spongy glowing bloom of true iron, which the smith then hammers clean, fold by fold, sparks flying up into the northern dusk. Every knife in this house, every scythe that cut the hay in the barn, every rivet in the ship asleep in the Nost, every loom weight ring and cauldron chain began as orange mud under a marsh and was farmed, cooked, and beaten into usefulness by the same 15 people who grew the barley. There may be no fact about this world that says more about it. Even their iron was homegrown. One more northern comfort, and it is one nobody expects of the Vikings, which says more about the stories your century was told than about the North. These are clean people, fastidiously, famously clean by the standards of their age. The English chroniclers of the time complained about it, actually complained in writing, that the Norse settlers combed their hair daily, bathed weekly, changed their linen, and were therefore, the chronicler grumbled, unreasonably successful with the local ladies. Every grave of this people tells the same story, whatever else lies in it. There is a comb, bone, or antler, carefully made, often beautifully decorated, the one possession nearly nobody in the North was buried without, and the week itself carries the proof. Among the day names this people used, one was Lagardagur, washing day, bath day, the day set aside for the hot water and the wash tub and the clean shirt. And in the northern languages that name never left, the Scandinavians still call Saturday by it, bath day, 1,000 years of Saturdays wearing the same towel. In this house, it means the big kettle over the fire, the wooden tubs, the hair combed out and rebraided by the fire, the linen boiled, the household filing through the warmth in order of age and argument, and in the lands where the earth itself steams, the unearned luxury of the hot springs, a pool of naturally scalding water in a snow-covered lava field, where a farmer can sit up to his neck in the source of all comfort, with snowflakes landing in his beard, and the Icelanders who were given this by their volcanoes have never once taken it for granted, and never will. Tonight is not bath night, but the comb has been through every head in the house all the same. The linen against your skin is clean and smells of wind, and the sheepskin over you was beaten and aired in the autumn sun, and the deep comfort you are lying in is not roughness endured. It is care, taken daily by people who lived at the edge of the world and refused on principle to be uncombed there. And do not imagine, from all this firelit stillness, that winter locks the north indoors, because tomorrow, if the clear sky holds, the valley will be out in the snow, and moving across it faster than it moves in summer. Winter up here is the traveling season. It sounds backwards, and it is exactly right. In summer, this land is bogs, rivers, fjord heads, a maze of wet obstacles. In winter, every one of them freezes. The bogs become plains. The lakes become roads. The rivers become the smoothest highways in the world, and the north glides out onto them on the three great inventions of the snow. Skis, long-worn boards with turned-up tips, older here than memory, older than the sagas, on which a herder can run down a valley in an afternoon that would take 2 summer days. Sledges, drawing loads over frozen ground that no cart could cross. The winter being, among everything else, the hauling season, when timber and hay and heavy goods move. And, most charming of all, skates of bone, the polished leg bones of horses and cattle, lashed flat under the shoes, on which the skater does not stride as your century skates, but pulls along, punting across the ice with a spiked staff, hissing over the black frozen lake at wonderful speed with the low sun in his eyes. The children of this house have their bone skates hanging in the passage, and if tomorrow is still and bright, the frozen shallows below the home field will be full of them, shrieking by mid-morning. So the snow that seemed tonight like a wall is also, by morning light, a floor. The north does not wait winter out. It changes shoes and uses it, and half the year's visiting, trading, courting, and racing happens on the white roads that the cold builds every year, free of charge, right up to every farm's front door. Deep in the night now, the longhouse reaches its stillest hour, and the stillest hour of a longhouse is a thing worth being awake inside of, briefly, on your way down. The ember river in the trench has burned to its banked glow, a long dim seam of orange under gray, breathing so slowly it seems geological. The night lamp on its shelf holds its small gold tear of flame perfectly still. Frost has climbed the inside of the door planks in white ferns and stopped there, defeated, at the border of the fire's country. The cold outside has deepened into the great stillness after snow, and the house answers it with warmth so settled, so evenly banked through wool and body and byre and ember, that the two of them, the cold and the warmth, seem simply to have agreed on the property line and gone to sleep on their own sides of it. Along the platforms, the household is far under. The grandmother sleeps flat and straight and dignified, 70 winters practiced. The children have rearranged themselves twice already, and will again. The husbandi, even asleep, lies facing the door, which is not fear, it is just where a farmer faces. Someone murmurs 3 words of dream Norse and subsides. The dog's paws twitch through some slow rabbit saga of his own, and beyond the partition, the cattle stand and doze and sway, warm engines idling in the straw, sending their steady animal Summer up the long room all night, as they have every night. The oldest central heating in the world. And you feel, lying in the middle of all this breathing, exactly what this building was for, from the first sod cut 80 years ago. Not shelter. Shelter is only the means. The purpose was this: one warmth, held in common with everyone inside it. And before sleep takes you entirely, walk the whole snowy evening once more, slowly, touching each warm thing as you pass it and letting it go. The snow arriving on the turf like one blanket laid on another, and the house being tucked in, and the long fire lying down the middle of everything like a warm river. Let it go. The walls 6 feet deep in rooted earth, the roof wearing the hillside, the passage that makes the wind lose its way, and the wind's eye up in the roof, the Vindaga still hiding inside every window you will ever look through. Let them go. The husbandi in his high seat, the house dweller who gave his name to every husband since, and the mistress with the storehouse keys at her belt, ruling the winter from her ring of iron. Let them go. The full buyer breathing behind its partition, the hay sums done right in October, the sound of solvency in a snowstorm. Let it go. The fire that has never once been lost in 30 winters on Thor's own day, and the 4 northern gods still keeping their quiet week in your kitchen calendar. Let them go. The supper that was all of it summer, caught and carried over, the stockfish like fragrant wood, the skyer cool from the storeroom, the message sent in June, arriving tonight, saying, hold on. Let it go. The storeroom counted to the barrel, the butter that is nearly coin, the stone lamp burning the sea itself. Let it go. The spindle turning, sinking, wound turning, the loom weights knocking their slow stone music, and the cloth on the great loom that is not like money but is money. Wealth woven nightly out of patience and last summer's sheep. Let them go. The grandmother's saga walking the whole length of the family's memory, the law that lives in one man's head and gave your language its very word for law, and the little wooden messages carved in an alphabet built for a knife. Let them go. The king on the game board walking out through the one road she left open on purpose, and the boy's face, and the applause of thumps on wool. Let it go. The storm breaking over the house back like a wave over a whale, and the guest place standing ready by the fire, empty and meaningful, like a lamp left burning. Let them go. The stillness when the snow stopped, the doorway of stars, the green curtains folding and unfolding over the fells without a sound, and the one gray thread of smoke, dead straight, the only warm thing in the whole blue world, and it was yours. Let it go. The ship asleep on her rollers in the Nost, dreaming of the light half, and the bone skates hanging in the passage, waiting for the shrieking children and the black ice. Let them go. The comb that nobody in the north was buried without, the clean linen smelling of wind, and bath day still keeping it Saturday after 1,000 years. Let them go. And the Ember River banked down the whole length of the house, holding tomorrow, and the frost stopped at the border of the fire's country, and one warmth held in common with everyone inside it. Let it all go. It is all still there. That is what the north builds for. The turf will take the next gust without waking anyone. The hay will last with a margin. The cloth is growing on the loom in the dark, a thread a night, and the saga knows itself by heart, and the lights over the fells need no one to watch them, and somewhere out on the year's far side, already unstoppably, the light half is on its way back up the world. So your hands can let go of the day, your shoulders can let go of the day, and your thoughts can come in off the fell now too, stamp the snow from their boots in the winding passage, and find their place on the warm platform among all the others, under the deep wool, in the ember light. One last northern thing, and then the night is all yours. Tonight, while you sleep, you are gaining a winter. That is how they would count it here, and it is worth borrowing their arithmetic for one night. Not growing older. Gaining. A winter survived is a winter won, added to your tally like cloth to the chest, and this one is being won for you in your sleep. Buy a house that has already done all the work. The hay in the barn, the fire under the ash, the storm spent, the storeroom sound, the whole long-defended night proceeding exactly according to a plan laid down in the bright half of the year by people who thought of you in June and said, "Hold on. The lamp is low. The bar is dropped. The Ember River is keeping tomorrow, all down its length. The snow is doing the roof's insulating for free now, getting deeper and quieter by the hour. And 15 people and 20 warm animals are breathing around you in the dark. One shared warmth at the edge of the world, adding a winter to everyone inside it. Sleep now, the whole white night through. Good night."